The Roman Regal Period is a very underrated period of Roman history. Several of Rome's most important traditions and themes have their origin in the Roman kingdom. If we are to believe our sources, then each king, from Romulus to even Tarquin the Proud, introduced some sort of important Roman tradition to the Roman populace. But should we believe our sources? Did the Roman kings actually do what we are told they did? And what was the actual legacy of the Roman kingdom? Let's talk about it. Before we get any further into today's episode, I just want to quickly ask that you subscribe and like if you enjoy my content. It really helps the channel out and motivates me to make more content. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Today, we are not going to be talking about any individual Roman kings. Instead, we are going to look at the regal period as a whole. I should also note here that there will be much more of my own speculation in this episode than normal. We should firstly tackle the question of believability. Here we really have three different groupings. First, we have the obviously unbelievable stories and historical attributions. For instance, Romulus did not found the city of Rome, nor was he the son of Mars. Instead, Romulus was likely simply the first leader of a united city on the 7 hills of Rome, and he was likely the son of a leading societal member of that fledgling city. Each Roman king has these legendary stories attached to their name. While we know that these stories are false, they are actually a Roman tradition. When we look at Roman history, we can normally tell which Romans were great or important, as they will almost always have some sort of supernatural stories attached to them. The kings of the regal period are no different, and while they may not have been the first Romans to receive this treatment, they were continuations in this Roman tradition. Secondly, we have a group of historical attributions and stories that are likely attributed to the right king, and probably were deeds carried out by that king. In this grouping, we are mostly looking at the various wars. It is probably true that Tullius Hostilius waged war against Alba Longa and the Latins. It is probably true that Romulus fought the Sabines, and it is probably true that Ansus Marcius waged war against the Latins. We really have no reason to doubt much of these attributions, although some of these may bleed into the next grouping. That third, and the largest and probably most important grouping, consists of deeds and attributions that are likely from the regal period, but may not be attributed to the right king. Most historians generally agree that there were more than 7 kings. It certainly seems like our sources, I'm looking at you, Livy, are missing at least a few kings. With those kings missing, we are going to have a decent amount of deeds that are attributed to the wrong king, as the person who is actually responsible for the deed is simply missing from the historical record. In this category, we have deeds and actions such as the Servian reforms. It is just completely impossible for a single king to reform the political system so much. Instead, these changes likely happened over a long period of time, with incremental change occurring throughout the reigns of several kings. This is likely the same explanation for the building of the Circus Maximus and the Colloquia Maxima, traditionally attributed to Lucius Tarquinius Priscus. These buildings were massive, even in their early form. Is it possible that Lucius Tarquinius Priscus was the king to order them built? Of course it is. Was he the only king who ordered additions to the two? I pretty seriously doubt it. This is really one of the main issues with the study of the Roman kingdom. We know we are missing kings, deeds, and stories. And when we are missing these things, the history is kinda hard to put together. The other real issue here is the simple fact that the Romans loved to fill their history with the establishment of various important institutions and traditions as far back as they could. I think the best example of this is Romulus. Romulus is said to have founded the city, the Senate, the idea of electing the top political office, the first 3 tribes, Rome's 2 social classes, and, well, you get the point. Is it possible that Romulus was the founder of all these things? Sure, just like it is possible that I will become president one day. The truth is that these institutions could have been founded by any king, or even by the first few consuls during the Republic. But for the Romans themselves, it was much more prestigious and conferred much more legitimacy to attribute the founding of some of Rome's most important traditions and institutions to the founder of the whole state, rather than some random king or consul. I'm not trying to say that Romulus was not important, or did not create any Roman traditions or institutions. I'm simply pointing out that it was advantageous for the Romans to point to him as the person to found all these things. The truth is probably very similar to that of the Servian reforms. These traditions, and even the institutions themselves, likely developed over the reign of several kings and rulers, not just one. So then what did the Roman kingdom really give to the later versions of the Roman state? Well, I think we can safely say that many of these traditions and institutions were actually from the Roman kingdom. For instance, our historical records do seem to suggest that the Senate existed at the time of the founding of the Roman Republic. We also know that the consuls were based around the power of the kings. That is really the legacy of the Roman kingdom. It laid a foundation for later versions of the Roman state to build off of. While it is certainly possible that the establishment of various institutions and traditions are attributed to the wrong king, or were simply inventions of people like Livy, there can be no doubt that the Roman kingdom was influential on the Roman Republic, and by extension the Roman Empire. The other important point that comes from the Roman kingdom is what we can find by reading in between the lines. For instance, while we have this legendary story of Lucius Tarquinius Priscus coming to Rome on the back of prophetic visions, we should also remember that he was born and raised as an Etruscan. While we could just accept this story at face value, there's also an opportunity here to make some reasonable assumptions. Maybe this story reflects a new age of Etruscan dominance. Maybe this was even the real reason that Tarquin the Proud is overthrown. Perhaps the Romans had enough of being ruled over by Etruscans, and Tarquin was kicked out because of that. This would explain why Tarquin seemingly gave no punishment to his son. We've already done a little bit of this in discussing the possibility of a coup by Servius Tullius or his supporters. While this is all just speculation, and we may never be able to prove any of this definitively, this is still an important aspect of the possible history of Rome. We've already established that some of the stories and legends in the history of the kingdom were obviously false. It is not so far of a stretch to assume that some of these stories and legends hold the truth. We may never definitively know the actual truth behind the writings of Livy. And so part of the job of examining the Roman kingdom is attempting to find the truth in the myth. And hopefully, I've done a decent enough job of doing that during this series. The Roman kingdom is without a doubt one of the most fascinating periods of Roman history. We know so little about it definitively, but it seems to hold a position of massive importance in the rest of the history of Rome. Much of what we know of the period is based on oral tradition, which is not the most reliable source of information. But nonetheless, the period is important in any study of Roman history. I hope I have done it justice. Thank you for watching this series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have watched, liked, or subscribed. I can't tell you how happy it makes me that even just one of you is willing to listen to me ramble on about history. It is truly amazing, and I hope you continue to stick around. Tomorrow, Tuesday, May 9th, I'll upload a video talking about the future content schedule for the rest of the month, so be on the lookout for that. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions on the video or on future videos, or believe I've made a mistake, please comment down below. And please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It really helps the channel out. Peace.